Welcome to New Jersey Politics with Laura Jones. I am Laura Jones, and we are so glad to have you here. Today on New Jersey Politics, Assemblyman Jay Webber was invited to the United Nations to discuss his legislation aiming to safeguard children and reduce the demand for pornography by requiring age verification for adult content on the internet. He's standing by. First, though, the Democratic National Convention is around the corner, and New Jersey's delegates are getting ready to head to Chicago. Joining us now is one of those delegates, Gill, who is also an Essex County Commissioner. Gill, welcome to the show. Good to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, well, so first off, let's just talk a little bit about a delegate's role at the convention. How do you prepare for such a really big, significant event?
Well, thanks, Laura. There's a few elements of being a delegate. I'm what they call a district delegate. So part of the preparation for that, quite frankly, has been even more so with the events of the Democratic Party over the last 3 weeks. But part of that is participating each day in a process where we get to hear from both our state and national leaders, then participating in the actual convention process itself. So casting our vote as elected delegates for our presidential nominee, for our ticket, which, as we sit here today, it was just recently announced with Vice President Harris selecting Tim Walz as her vice presidential running mate. So participating actually each night, both in the what I would call administrative and work process that the convention has to do, the work of the party in order to formally elect and select our nominee. And then also getting ready to see people that sometimes you don't get to see across the state and across the country who are members of the party through the various social activities and networking activities that a convention provides.
Yeah, well, so much has changed in the past few weeks, as you mentioned. Do you think there are going to be key policy issues that have changed, or what do you expect will be at the forefront of the convention discussions, and how do you think that's going to kind of shape the party's platform for the upcoming election?
Yeah, that's a great point, Laura. One of the main roles of a convention, kind of in modern politics, right, is to kind of produce this event to communicate the message of the candidate, almost an unofficial starting point for the campaign. Even though in this day and age, campaigns seem to go on and last forever and ever. This is, this particular convention, based on the fact that we had the switch in who our nominee was going to be. Of course, President Biden making the very honorable decision to withdraw and not accept the nomination, and Vice President Harris seeking the nomination and winning it. She actually, as we speak here today, she's actually already won the nomination. There was a roll call vote this past week to formally nominate her. But what comes out of this convention, in addition to that, is the policy platform. What is this candidate actually going to run on? So you kind of get both the broad themes of like what's going to be talked about, broadly speaking, for the final 90 plus or 85 plus days of this campaign, in addition to like the nuts and bolts of like what's really in that platform. What does the party stand for? Where does the party stand on issues of international relation, domestic policy, the economy, issues around reproductive health and choice, all those various issues that we hear about during the course of the campaign. The platform of the Democratic Party is formally produced during this process, which is also participate in and take part in. So you get to kind of be a part of that process, which is very, very exciting. And then also kind of see the finished product. You kind of know like, okay, this is what's done. This is what we're finished with. And this is what we're rolling with over the next 80 plus days through Election Day.
Well, can you talk a little bit more about kind of behind the scenes and again, the role of New Jersey delegation in the process? If you have issues you want to talk about, are there people who are going to be speaking? Things going on perhaps behind the scenes that our viewers may not see on prime time with those quick sound bites or speeches that are highlighted on a nightly basis?
Yeah, that's great. There's lots of opportunities actually for delegates to participate through various committees. There's a rules committee, there's a platform committee, there's members of our delegation that serve on those committees. So through the members of our entire New Jersey delegation, the delegation is made up of both our elected representatives, meaning people who hold elected office in the Democratic Party. So in New Jersey, that would be, your United States Senator, the members of the congressional delegation, the governor, other state senators, various members of the state legislature, and at the county and local level. And that kind of large group, which makes up the New Jersey delegation, then has subsets. So some of those people serve in some of those other, like I said, platform and rules committee, and you're behind the scenes kind of talking to those people, and not so much behind the scenes, but kind of using this week and this process to actually communicate both to those people directly and to others who are going to be part of kind of what the party stands for. It's an opportunity for you to really kind of bring forth like what you believe, not only as a member of the party, but as a member of the New Jersey delegation, what you think would be good for this party platform to include.
Have you been a delegate before, been to a convention? And if so, what's that experience been like?
So this is the first time I'm an elected delegate, so I'm excited about that. Actually, this is actually an office that you run for. The elected delegates are made up of they combine under the Democratic Party rules all the state legislative the state districts into each two districts get combined into one. So for every two state legislative districts, there's one delegate district. We can really bore the the folks at home with this civics lesson, but I am one of those elected district delegates. Very excited to be able to do that, to kind of represent both the delegate district, which I represent at the convention, cast my vote formally for which will be, no matter where you are on the political scale, this is the first time that a major political party will have, a woman of color as its nominee, and that's a big deal. So it's kind of cool to be a part of that history for sure. I've had the opportunity to go to many conventions in the past. My public service career also included working for elected officials. So I attended conventions when I was the chief of staff here in New Jersey for the late Senator Frank Lautenberg, when I worked for Congressman Steve Rothman, worked part of Governor Murphy's political and outreach team. So I've been to past conventions, had the opportunity to go to Denver in 2008 and watch that history when we nominated Barack Obama to be our nominee, 2004 with John Kerry, 2012 when we renominated Barack Obama, and probably the most interesting one was 2020 since it was all virtual, right? So I've been to quite a few in different capacities, as a member of the Democratic Party, as a person who's been active in partisan politics. But I'm really excited this time to be a part of the delegation in a formal manner, and I'm looking forward to being a part of making history in a couple of weeks.
So it's funny, the last convention I went to was in 2004, and I remember it vividly because I was 9 months pregnant with my daughter, and I thought I was kind of getting the short end of the stick because I didn't get to be reporting the night that John Kerry accepted the nomination. I was with this freshman senator from Illinois who was going to be speaking for the first time, Obama something, right? But the electricity. And that night, you just saw something, you felt something. And there is something about being at that convention. There's an electricity that doesn't always translate over the television. I mean, and it's history. And given that, as you mentioned, Kamala Harris is set to become the first Black woman, the first Asian American, can you just talk a little bit about how you perceive that historical significance of this moment for the Democratic Party and the nation?
Well, Laura, I think all politics is local, and for me, it really, starts at home. I'm a proud parent. I have a 15-year-old and a 12-year-old, and I have a 12-year-old daughter, and I can't tell you how excited she is, to see what's going on, in the Democratic Party and what that means. She was witnessed a little bit, of course, in 2016. When Hillary Clinton was the nominee of the Democratic Party, and we're not indoctrinating her. She's Republican, Democrat. She knows where her parents are, but she's free to make her own decisions. But just that example that sets, not only for I think all of the young women out there to see that, but also for the men. So she sees how the men in her lives deal with that and recognize that, and it becomes completely normalized, as it should, that she can pursue and do anything she wants to do in this country. So there's just a special feeling, at least that I'm enjoying watching as this process plays out. She's lobbying me every day, and I'm trying to figure out if we're going to be able to get her out there. I don't think it's going to happen, but she's doing her best.
Good for her. Good for her.
But I just, that's what it's all about. And those are kind of the things that, they transcend partisan politics. You're involved civically, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. You have an opportunity to be a part of this process, which I don't take for granted. Both for the example that I hope it can set, not only for my own children, but for the next generation, as we continue to grapple with some pretty serious issues in this country.
Yeah, and I definitely understand what you're saying, as a parent, how that kind of changes your perspective when you are at these conventions and you have a part of yourself who, is the future. Let me also get your thoughts on the vice presidential nominee, Minnesota Governor Tim Walz.
Listen, I think it's an excellent pick. There were plenty of good picks, and the great news here in our Democratic Party nationally is that our bench was very, very deep. So, he is a well-respected governor, a person who would be ready to lead on day one. If anything, God forbid, were to happen to Vice President Harris, he is a person that has established, I think, most important, both a governmental and personal and political relationship. So you have to work as a team in that position, and clearly someone that the vice president is very comfortable with, comes from a state that politically is very important for us in order to win, the election in November, and is solid on kind of the issues that our core base cares about. So it was very popular among, kind of our progressive community, very popular among Midwestern, Democrats, which we need to bring along in order to win this election. But most importantly, I think, we're going to hear from the vice president later today about this pick. But I think most importantly, from everything that's been reported early this morning, is this relationship that he has with the vice president to be able to lead and govern. Not only what he can deliver politically, but the ability to govern is critical in that position, and we're excited to see that he's on the ticket.
Final thoughts here. What kind of message do you think needs to come across, or hopes comes out of this convention, and specific for New Jersey voters?
Well, I hope New Jersey voters who tune in this convention get to see not only the energy that's around the vice president and her selection, but also a message of unification. I mean, this is clearly a divisive time in our country right now. We seem to be at each other's throats about a variety of things. And my hope is that the convention message will be one of unification and freedom. The freedom to be able to participate in these processes, the freedom to do what we think we need to do in order to protect our democracy and make sure that it's healthy, and really the freedom to be able to have, reproductive choice, the freedom to have a free and robust economy, the freedom to have voting rights that we know are protected. You can kind of go down and cherry pick a list of issues, but I'm really looking and hoping that New Jersey voters who tune in will see a message from the vice president, the one that promotes unification of our country. It's a time that we really do need to come together, and also that highlight our freedom and how we make sure we protect those going forward.
Brenda Gill, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate all of your thoughts and insights on the convention. Thank you.
Thanks for giving me a few minutes. Deeply appreciate it. Take care.
I'm here as a state policymaker, confronted by the compelling testimonies of our panel discussants today, and as well as calls from parents and educators in New Jersey who have approached me repeatedly about the plague of online pornography consuming the innocence and health of our children. Too often we see that terrible social problems elude and evade lawmaking solutions. The good news on this issue, however, if there is any, is that underage exposure to online pornography is one of those rare social scourges that has realistic policy remedies. Perhaps the best fix is requiring age verification. European policymakers already have passed such measures. I understand that colleagues in Australia and Canada are following suit. America must too. Federal lawmakers of the United States government should take action against the national evil of early exposure to online pornography, and I know you join me in calling on them to do just that.
Assemblyman, welcome to the show. Thank you for taking the time to talk with us. I wanted to talk to you about how you were recently invited to the United Nations to speak at the UN's World Against Trafficking in Persons. And it was all about the adult film industry and how it contributes to human trafficking and violence. So can you tell us a little bit about your experience at the UN?
Yeah, well, thanks for having me, Laura. went to the UN last week to talk about the intersection between human trafficking, the pornography industry, and digital access for especially our minors. We know that children with smartphones, especially tablets, often get access to adult content websites that are way too mature for them. The effect on those kids is powerful, but the addiction that it feeds and the pornography industry that it feeds leads to more human trafficking. So it's this vicious cycle that we went to New York to talk about.
You have a bill that would require age verification for anyone attempting in New Jersey to access certain adult content. So can you talk a little bit about what it is you're doing here?
Right. It just makes sense. We verify people's age if they want to buy a beer, if they want to buy firearms in the state, if they want to do any number of things that are, we believe, age appropriate, right? And so if you want to access an adult content website, you ought to be able to, or you should have to verify your age. The technology is available. It doesn't compromise privacy. There are many third-party providers who can confirm someone's age without even taking their ID through metadata, on their phone, or even through facial recognition these days. So it's a technology that's available. It's a concept that makes sense, and it'll protect kids, and I think, hopefully fight human trafficking as well.
Can you talk a little bit about the impact that pornography is having on minors? Young people, they might be on their phone and may not even purposefully necessarily trying to get to it, but instead they could be targeted or tricked. Can you talk a little bit about what you're hearing and the impact it's having on minors?
Sure. Well, studies have shown that as many as 60% of 11 to 13-year-olds who have seen pornography stumbled upon it for the first time accidentally. And so these are things that most kids aren't going looking for, but pop up on their phone, or the simplest Google searches will reach out and kind of pull them in. And the effects on kids can be devastating. Studies have shown that accessing and consuming pornography as a young person leads to depression, terrible body images, bad kind of views on proper relationships between men and women, leads to more sexual violence, especially in young boys. And of course, that hurts the individuals who are consuming the pornography, but it hurts the people around them too. It hurts their families. It hurts their boyfriends and girlfriends. And it really is something, I think, that hollows out young people, leads to other addictions, as we've seen, not just pornography addictions, but it can lead to alcohol addiction and drug use and abuse. It's a real problem, and it's a real problem with, I think, a very practical solution. So that's what we're pushing for.
I'm sure a lot of young people, they aren't necessarily going out looking for this. They just might stumble upon the content, and it must elicit any number of reactions, from curiosity to trauma to confusion. And as a child, oh my gosh, do I tell my parents what's going on? Do I tell my teachers? Am I going to get in trouble for something? So are you hearing that from families or from people who have been caught up in this? What's happened to them through no fault of their own?
Absolutely. Well, the economic incentives in our digital age is to get clicks, right? And there's SEO, search engine optimized searches that kids are often 1 or 2 clicks away from really, really graphic stuff that, frankly, I'm not sure many adults are prepared for, let alone very impressionable kids. And so it does lead to, as I said, depression in children who consume pornography. You see it even accidentally. But those feelings of guilt and shame, go along with that. And kids are often manipulated by adults online, not just through the internet, but then social media as well, and more direct contact with adults. So there's just a lot of very dangerous, very sensitive, very difficult things out there. Our kids deserve their innocence. They deserve their youth. And to whatever extent we can protect them and protect their youth and their innocence for as long as we can, I think we ought to. And so, constituents have come to me, stakeholders have come to me. They've shared their personal stories. They've shared the statistics and the data, and they've shared the solutions. I just bring it to the legislature and ask my colleagues for their support in pushing it forward, and that's what we're going to do.
Can you talk about what you heard from those speaking at your panel? You're talking about hearing solutions, so can you describe for our audience what you found out and how those hearings went?
Well, yeah, thanks, Laura. We had a hearing last week in Trenton because I felt so strongly about the issue. I think the information is so powerful. A bipartisan group of legislators came together, and we heard stories. We heard from a victim of human trafficking, someone who had been exploited online. We heard from a young man who had become addicted to pornography at a very young age, and the effect that that had on his life, causing other addictions and depression, sense of isolation, and how he's recovering. We heard from nurses and doctors who see this. They treat adolescents all the time who are suffering from pornography exposure, pornography addiction, but also then the after effects of that, or the secondary effects of that, the negative relationships that they endure. And it was difficult. There was a lot of emotional testimony, but we took it in, and then we worked on solutions, and we heard from technology providers who have really inexpensive ways to verify the age of individuals online without compromising privacy. We've got upwards of 19 states who have passed laws to require age verification for adult content website users. 38 states have introduced legislation to require that. And so we all looked at each other and said, why shouldn't New Jersey be doing this? Why can't New Jersey be doing this? And no one has a good answer. Why not? So hopefully when the legislature reconvenes in September, we can see legislation move that will simply require adult content sites to verify one's age. Any number of ways are acceptable. There are multiple ways that websites can go about that. Again, they're inexpensive and they don't compromise individuals' privacy, but it's there, it's available, and we're going to push to bring this to New Jersey and just try to protect our kids.
What are you hearing as far as pushback goes? People who are arguing that, hey, if I have to put my birthday out there to confirm my age, you're invading my privacy.
I haven't heard from any consumers, and it's really the pornography industry that pushes back. They use the First Amendment as a bit of a shield. And of course, there are First Amendment considerations that we always have to take into account, and privacy considerations. But we don't concern ourselves, or we've satisfied ourselves that verifying one's age before they consume alcohol is enough of a priority that other considerations have to be subordinate. The same with firearms, and the same with, again, any number of other issues that require one to be mature enough to handle the subject or the content that they'd be consuming. So while there might be some pushback and objections, it hasn't stopped 18 other states from going forward, and it shouldn't stop New Jersey. There are a couple of cases working their way through the courts, and the Supreme Court, I think, is going to take this issue on in the next term, in 24-25. So we'll get some direction from courts, but the Fifth Circuit has already upheld a constitutional challenge to age verification, and I think it'll withstand the challenges that have been brought against it, mostly because it just makes common sense, and I don't think the Constitution requires us to give access to really, really significant, heavy adult content to children. I don't think it says that in the Constitution, and I think that age verification laws will be upheld.
And just final thoughts here. With your bill that you've introduced in New Jersey, would that extend to other social media sites where there might be adult content that maybe is kind of a gateway to other porn that is available out there?
Yeah, the bill would apply to any site, whether it's a social media site or website that has a threshold amount of adult content on it. So, social media sites that invite youth to see pornography would have to verify their age. And I think that's fair, and I think that's important. We understand that every site can't stop every kind of encroachment, or use of their platform. But if you're going to have a website that or platform that on which children can access pornography, and it's prevalent, then it's a simple age check before kids move forward or anyone moves forward just makes sense.
Assemblyman Jay Webber, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us and explain a little bit about this bill and some of the dangers out there that our children are facing.
Thanks for having me, Laura.
And that will do it for today. I'm Laura Jones. Thanks so much for watching New Jersey Politics. We look forward to seeing you back here next time.